Jesus has been arrested, and he was taken from the Mount of Olives where he was praying and brought back into Jerusalem. And he's been tried now by the Sanhedrin, the highest court of the land for the Jews, and they found him guilty of blasphemy. They've decided, the high priest and the rulers, that he must die. And they've already started having fun with him as they punish him. They mock him, they slap him and punch him and spit on him. And it's all happening in the house of Caiaphas, the high priest. And Matthew describes in chapter 26, not just what's happening inside, but also what's happening outside in the courtyard. See, Jesus right now is inside, while Peter is outside, and Matthew wants us to focus on him and see what he is doing. So let's start chapter 26, starting in verse 69. Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him. "You also were with Jesus of Galilee," she said. But he denied it before them all. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. Peter had followed Jesus at a distance, and I guess he wants to be close, he wants to see, but not too close, dares not get too close. What if they also grab him? What if they put him on trial? What if they do something horrible to him? Maybe he shouldn't stay, but I guess he can't leave, so probably watching around him, probably keeping a sharp eye inside if he can just see what's going on in there. Once in the courtyard, wants to blend in, not make a scene, stay there, be alert, be calm, just wait. And right about now, a servant girl speaks up, speaks her mind, says what is profound, and right on the money, she nails it. She sees him, she knows him, she points him out. Peter, trying to keep a distance from Jesus, but also stay close. He doesn't want to be too close, not lumped in with him, and here she is lumping him in with him. Same sentence, same group, you are with him. I don't know how long she's been eyeing him or studying his facial features before she wants to confront him. But she knows him. She has seen him with Jesus somehow, and I don't know where, in the temple courts as he's teaching, in the crowds, on the road, out in the garden. Somehow she knows, and out loud in front of everyone she says it. And Peter, for a moment, has to think fast and make a decision. What will he do? Own up to it? Tell everybody there he knows him? Face the consequences? Confess his love for his master and friend? Or take the blows? Or take what comes his way? Or he could deny him. What does he do? He denies him. And maybe you think he's addressing the girl, but he's not. He speaks, as Matthew says, to everybody. He answers all of them if they're wondering. He's not whispering. He's not hiding it. He's making it plain for all to hear. I don't know what you're talking about. I wonder if he giggles like she might be kidding. I wonder if he sneers like she might be crazy. I wonder if he snorts to make a verbal punctuation on his sentence. I don't know. Don't you wonder what's running through his mind right now, Peter? I mean, is he scared? Does he say it and immediately regrets it, or would he do it again to save his own hide? Well, at least for now it's done. She asked it, she said it, he denied it, and I'm sure he thinks it's over. I don't know how much time passes, but here it comes again, verse 71. Then he went out to the gateway where another servant girl saw him and said to the people there, "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth." He denied it again, this time with an oath. "I don't know the man." Maybe he moved away from the first scene to avoid that girl because she's making him uncomfortable. Maybe she is staring and others are staring, and he thought, let me move over to the gate, to the entrance, to the exit. Let me move over there, and maybe I'll change it up. Maybe it'll be better over there. Maybe the uncomfortable spotlight of scrutiny won't be there, but he's wrong. He wished that it were over, but it's not over. There's another one. Of course, there's another one. And here it comes, and it's much the same. Similar accusation, similar accuser, similar response. I wonder, Peter, was it easier this time? Did it hurt a little less or a little more? Does he even know what's going on? Does he have in his mind what he is doing right now? Or is this all a blur and his head is spinning so fast he can't get his bearings? It's a different person this time, but it's another servant girl, and she also accuses him, identifies him. She knows him. It's not so much the accuser as the accusations. Those are what sting. That's what scares him. This fellow was with Jesus, she says. We don't know what she knows, but she knows this. And here's the second witness who testifies to the truth. He doesn't just deny it this time, he swears by oath. That statement, girl, is a lie. He boldly claims to tell the truth while he tells a bold-faced lie and calls the witness telling the truth a liar. The second one now who speaks the truth about him. And if it wasn't that bad enough before, there was a third one coming. A little more time has passed now. Peter, I'm guessing, is probably by this time sweating. Heart is racing. Mind is spinning. What does this mean? What should he do? Where should he go? Should he stand there and look inconspicuous or find a dark shadow, a place to hide? Or should he just run? Just run. Too late. Too late, Peter. Here it comes. After a while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, "Surely you are one of them. Your accent gives you away." He began to call down curses, and he swore to them, "I don't know the man." And immediately a rooster crowed. It's not an insignificant little servant girl this time, not like the first two times. Now it's a group. I don't even know how big the group is, but several of them muster up the courage to walk up to him and confront him. Two have called him out. Now a group says, "Your accent gives you away, sir." It all makes sense. The overwhelming evidence is piling up. It has to be true. The third time he says it again. It's significant. 3 times. 3 times. Peter has opportunity to stand up like a man and face his accusers and say, "I am a proud friend of Jesus. I own him. I embrace him. I'll shout it to the world so you can hear it." But he couldn't. He didn't. And Peter, the rock, has crumbled. Peter, the Jesus follower, has stumbled and left Jesus behind. Peter, the proud and outspoken one, has been shamed and silenced. Oh, he has things to say, and he says them very plainly. And the third time, he says it, and it all starts hitting home. If he suspected it before, he knows it now. If he hoped to heaven he wouldn't do it the third time, he has done it the third time. He planned earlier and said earlier he would stand and fight and die for Jesus, and somehow the third time in a row he has buckled and folded and turned yellow. He has succeeded in staying alive. He's succeeded in lying and deceiving. He has successfully played the hypocrite in the courtyard to perfection on this night. He gives up. He gives in. He rolls over. He acts like, "Jesus? Who? Total stranger. Never heard of him." He said it's not true. He has sworn by an oath. Now he calls down curses from heaven. "May I be struck by lightning if this isn't true, what I said." He wants to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that what those people have said is absolutely not true. And the only problem is it is absolutely true. Just as Jesus said it would happen. 3 times. 3 times he denied him, as Jesus said, and then the rooster crows. And if Peter didn't get it earlier, he gets it. If he said earlier, "Never in a million years would I do such a thing," he just did such a thing. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And if it wasn't crystal clear to him already what he has done, the auditory sign comes to him. It travels over some distance and it sneaks up and hits him hard. He hears it. The sound pierces the darkness and rams into his ear and travels all the way down and hits the core of his soul. It was the dreaded sound of a rooster crowing. Then Peter, verse 75, remembered the word Jesus had spoken, "Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." I guess up to this point, Peter was so caught up in the moment, so worried about what was being said, what might happen, fearing death maybe, that it does not sink in until this moment when the rooster crows, and now he knows it. The words, the prophecy, the accuracy of his failure, front and center. And he can't deny it after he's 3 times denied it. The truth is clear. And if it weren't bad enough, Luke, if you didn't know this, Luke is the only one who adds this little nugget of information in the middle of the story. It's like pouring salt in the wound as Luke pens these words. Just as he was speaking, the rooster crowed, and in that moment, the Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. And Peter remembered the word the Lord had spoken to him. The look. Don't you wonder about the look? What did the look like? It doesn't say it. You can imagine it. I don't even know if we'd be right. I suspect it's a mixture of facts and feelings all wrapped up in the face of Jesus as he looks at Peter. Somehow he and Peter lock eyes. Jesus is inside, but somehow through an open window he sees Peter and he knows. Peter knows. But Jesus already knew, prophesying it would happen just like this. So I know the look is not shock or surprise. I don't imagine it to be mean or angry, surely disappointed, probably hurt. If I know Jesus, it had to be a look of love and encouragement and mercy and hope. I don't care what the look looked like. Peter didn't need it to feel worse about himself. I think Jesus could have screamed in that moment, I've already forgiven you, Peter. I still love you, Peter. I'm going to use you again, Peter. If I know Peter, then Peter probably in this moment wanted to just die. And what else could Peter do in the moment? But what he did, he went outside of the outside courtyard. He left and he wept bitterly. Of course he wept bitterly. What else would he do? And I think the main question of the morning as we stop right there, not so much is what just happened, but have you ever been there? Have you ever done that? You promised you would not forsake Jesus, maybe having come up from the water still dripping wet, and promised that you would be faithful. And even when he knows what we will do, everything within us says, I will not sin, I will be holy, I will be good, I will be faithful. And then you did that? You ever heard the rooster crowing? Not really, but the conviction of the heart in the moment when you have sinned. You know what you have done, almost like you can't be forgiven of that. Not this time, not again. I mean, how many times could you say, I have lied? How many times can you fail him when you said you wouldn't and you shouldn't and you couldn't and you did? Maybe you lock eyes with him. Maybe you know because he knows and now you know. And how embarrassing is that moment? Have you ever spent a night out weeping bitterly? Do you know what it's like to wallow in shame and regret, feeling totally unworthy of his love or forgiveness? I wonder what Peter said to God if he went out during his time of weeping and wailing. I wonder if he prayed. And if he did, I wonder what he prayed and what he asked for and what he wished for. I wonder if he was even able to pray or just sat in silence as the tears would not stop, feeling unworthy to utter a word to a holy God after passionately lying about his own son. Have you been there? I know we're not Peter. I know we haven't done that. Not exactly. But then again, haven't we in some ways? I have. I would be embarrassed to tell you what I have done. Have you been there? The circumstances may be different. But in a place where you can, in the moment, stand up proudly and say, I am a Christian. I know Jesus intimately. I follow the Lord. I don't care what you say or you do. I will not hide it. But instead of saying that, instead of acting like that, you just want to shrink a little bit and blend in just a little better and bail out and slip away and not say a word, and you do. You hide it. You deny it. You act like it's not true. A little pressure from a friend, a little heat from an enemy. Maybe it's a family member or a coworker or even a stranger in a crowd of onlookers who don't even know you. But because of what you feel and what you fear, you put your relationship with Jesus away and you say it. You say it differently than you believe it. And maybe in the moment you laugh at the crude joke and you party just a little hard and you get a little tipsy and you say what everybody else is saying because you sure don't want to make waves, you don't want to stick out, you don't want to seem weird, you don't want to look like an idiot, you don't want to be ostracized or labeled or punished, so you go along with it. Of course you do. You downplay the commitment, you act like everybody else, you even might say it, I don't know what you're thinking, but it's not what you think. I mean, I'm not like that. I'm not a radical Christian. I don't even take it all that seriously. Seriously, I don't. I wonder if each of us could follow all the rest of us, if we would find in our lives, maybe even this week, some times that would be, sadly, for a Christian, just blending in beautifully to the world so as not to stick out and seem crazy. And even when we need to come clean and say it like it is and talk about our faithlessness, I think in that moment we are even more grateful for His faithfulness, because it is in our weaknesses, in the times we have failed, royally failed and sinned, we look at Him and see the stark difference between us and Him. Because there is a big difference in this moment between Peter and Jesus, and I'm in Peter's shoes. Peter is saving himself and leaving Jesus to take it all. Jesus doesn't flinch. He gladly accepts it, the ridicule, the laughter, the spit and the insults and the hitting. He willingly takes it all. First in this moment, in this trial, and very soon He'll take it. The thorns on His head and the nails in His hands and feet, He'll take it. And have you thought of this? If Jesus, not me, but Jesus were standing before you today, if Jesus were up here and looked you in the eye, because He knows what you have done just this week, just last month, just this year, if He looked at you, met you eyeball to eyeball, knowing the truth about you, what that look would be like, where He would, with merciful eyes, show you forgiveness while He marches on to die for you in your moments of shame and sin. And it's not a question of what might happen. In some ways, He's already done it. No, truthfully, He's already done it. The question isn't, what would He do? It's, what will we do? How do we respond to that truth? Because everyone should put their faith in Jesus Christ and turn their back on their sins and be immersed into Jesus Christ. But even some of us who have done that before, we did that. That's in our past. Still, we've seen that look in some ways, understanding the magnitude of our sin, our huge failures, and sometimes we also find ourselves on our knees again saying the same thing. Please forgive me for that. Maybe it's a good time this week, this day, to say with a new sense of faithfulness, I will be faithful to you, even with my faithlessness in the past. Jesus and Peter share a grueling night. They both bear a heavy burden, but very different, because Jesus stands strong and Peter buckles and bends and breaks. Jesus takes it and Peter gives it up. Jesus sacrifices Himself for everyone else, and Peter saves his own skin, not worried about anybody else. Jesus walks toward the cross so that Peter and every sinner like Peter and me could be saved, while we sometimes can't stand under the peer pressure of a few individuals on a hard day. And Peter will spend some time crying, while Jesus will spend a lot more time dying. I don't want to be too hard on Peter. I think you know that. Because I know one thing for sure, as great as his failure has been, mine has been great too. Thankfully, his story isn't done. If you don't know the rest of this, even though we stop there, it's not finished. The Lord doesn't leave him there. Peter will get through this night, a horrible night, and he will see Jesus again, and Jesus will welcome him and allow him to serve, to love, to die for him one day. It's not over right here. If you don't know the rest of Peter's story, go read the Gospel of John. Read the last chapter of John. Read the letters of Peter. You'll see the rest of the story. Thank God there is grace and mercy and forgiveness for Peter and for Tony and for you. I have shared this story with Peter many times. I love this story. And I see myself in this story because I have done my share of crying. And I have been embarrassed. And I have been shamed. And I have been guilty. And I know what it's like. I don't know if you do, but I do. And still, as old as I get, I'm still amazed that Jesus still loves me and intends to use me for His purposes despite my past. Grateful. If you thought this was the end for Peter, you were wrong. Jesus has big plans for Peter in His new church. And this is our story too. I think it's why you're here. It's why we will not stop singing and praying and praising. We won't quit loving the one who loved me enough to do this. We won't stop serving the one who thought we were worthy of His blood. It's Peter's story. It's my story. I think it's our story, but really it's Jesus' story. And He is, as I said so many times before, the hero of the story. It's amazing what He does. If you don't know what He does next, keep reading Matthew. You'll see it. It's amazing what He does next. One thing I want to leave you with, you can go out thinking of this. I've said the song before. It's a good song. Maybe you've heard it on Christian radio. Crowder sings it. Kind of puts us in the place of Peter, puts us in the place of other disciples and other sinners who have not just failed Him or not just sinned, but nailed Him to the cross. Because the truth, as we have already thought about during communion, the truth is we have killed Him with our sin. We have nailed Him there. If you've put your faith in Jesus, if you have repented of your sins, if you've been united with Him in baptism, covered by His blood, then the truth is amazing. For all of our failures and all of our sins, He has chosen to forgive us, and we will always be grateful for that. Here are the words of the song. I am the one who held the nail. It was cold between my fingertips. I've hidden in the garden. I've denied you with my very lips. God, I fall down to my knees with a hammer in my hand, and you look at me, arms open. Forgiven. Forgiven. Child, there is freedom from all of it. Say goodbye to every sin. You are forgiven. He goes on to sing, I've done things I wish I hadn't done. I've seen things I wish I hadn't seen. God, I fall down to my knees with a hammer in my hand. You look at me, arms open. Forgiven. Forgiven. If you are not forgiven, do not leave here until you are. And if you are forgiven, then don't let one day pass without your heartfelt thanks and praise and worship of the one who has forgiven you. Because there is nothing sweeter than this, to be forgiven. Let's stand and sing.